Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make over some items in more of a farmhouse style decor. And we're going to start with this box, and I don't really have any idea what it's for. I thrifted it and I thought it was very good quality. As you can see, it's rounded on the bottom and in the corners, and there's a divider in there so that you don't get the benefit of the height of it. So I'm not sure what that was about, but I decided to, I like to buy items that are this raw wood and good quality, and so I figured I would find a use for this. Now, at first I wanted to leave this in the raw wood color, and that's why I'm putting a clear finish on it. But then when I started to add the stencil that I want to add, I messed up the stencil. I used Stays On ink and a makeup brush to do this, but as you can see, I got bleed through on one of the E's. I tried to remove that with some alcohol, but wasn't successful in getting it to go away enough that you couldn't tell that it was there. So I ended up painting over this. And what I decided to do was to paint it black. And I didn't worry about full coverage because that's just the color that I'm gonna that I want to come through in my crackle. As you can see, I've painted this with a crackle medium, and I just used Dixie Belle. You could also use just regular school glue, but I painted it on and let it dry, and now I'm putting one heavy coat of the color Buttercream. So again, I'm just going to let this be a crackle finish, and after I did it, I was real happy with the look of it, and I think I would rather have it that way than the raw wood. But sometimes we just have to take our projects in different directions and just kind of go with the flow, and that's what I did, and it just happened to work out. So because the stencil that I'm putting on this is kind of a prayer, I thought this would be good for fall, and it could be used on maybe a buffet or something like that, and it would be really appropriate for Thanksgiving. And by the time I got one coat on this, you could already start to see the crackle happen. And it's not that quick with regular glue, but with this Dixie Belle crackle finish, it is. And you see very pronounced cracks, and again, you see them very quickly. So I'm going to put that same stencil on the front and the back. That way, if you decided to put this in the center of a table with some decor around it, you would see that from both sides of the table. And this is one that just happened to fit perfectly on this, so I felt like it was meant to be. Now again, I'm using Stays On ink in the color Jet Black, and then some makeup brushes that I love to use for stenciling. And I have a lot of people ask about these brushes. You can even get these at the Dollar Tree, or you can buy a set through Amazon, and I'll add that in the description. I think it's slightly cheaper to order through Amazon. And what I'm going to do is just put a floral arrangement in this, just kind of a loose arrangement, and you can change that out then with the seasons if you want. I'm going to put some floral foam in it, but I'm not going to glue that in, so that again you can change that out. And then the next item that I'm going to make over is a little wall basket, and I like that it's natural, but it has a little bit too much orange to it. So I'm just going to take the piece off the front and use my white wax and just white wax over the basket. And I really like the look that this white wax gives the basket weave. And then because I don't want this to stay plain, I'm just going to take some fabric, and I think I just used some muslin fabric, and I ripped a square to fit on the front, and then I just hot glued that on the front after I added my stencil. And I always rip the fabric, or most often I rip the fabric because I like that frayed edge. And again, this was a stencil that just fit perfectly on this little basket. And then I added an arrangement of flowers in this one. And the reason I'm doing sunflowers is because I have an area in the store that has some sunflower items, and I need to fill in some there. So I think that sunflowers are very farmhouse, and they go well in the fall. So it's a good time for me to do these. And I think when you're doing farmhouse style, you have to be careful not to overdo it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm keeping my arrangement very simple, and the items that I'm making over, I'm putting touches of sunflower without adding too much. I think mainly you just need the color scheme and just a hint of the sunflowers. But every decorating style, I think, is just a matter of your opinion and how you see it. So if you feel like it needs more, then obviously do more. It's just, to me, I feel like farmhouse is kind of a simple look. And then once I finished my arrangement, I just wrapped some jute twine around it and tied on a shabby bow that I made out of just little strips of fabric. And then the next item that I'm going to make over is another cabinet door. And I've base coated this in the color black. Actually, not just base coated, I put a couple of coats. And then I'm going to paint just the center in the color buttercream. And I could have taped that off, but I was just very careful to trim it out. And again, I just gave this 2 coats. And then I added a hanger to the back, and the way I did that is I just took some picture hanging wire, and I put a couple of short screws in each end, and I did screw them all the way in, and then I wrapped that wire around each of them and pulled it taut, and then screwed those back in. And that's a very easy way to make a hanger. So once I got the hanger on, I wanted to do that before I added anything to the front. But once I got that on, then I had a couple of hooks that I wanted to add. But first, I decided to put some sunflower transfers on this, and I just used a couple of pieces that I had left over from my transfer set and just added some to each side. And I wanted to let that transfer go over onto the black as well. And then I decided to do a little stenciling on the top and add the words Farm Life, and then add my cast iron hooks. And my hooks were already in the color black, so I left them black and just screwed those on with some very short screws that wouldn't go all the way through. And I also did some light distressing with some sandpaper. And I like the look that gives with the black to bring some of that natural wood through. And then I went over the black only with some of the Van Dyke Brown glaze from Dixie Belle. And that gives that black a really good look. And I like the very simple look that I got from this, and it can be used now to hang your aprons on or just whatever you want if you were to use it in the kitchen. And now I want to make over this pumpkin, and to do that, I had to take a serrated knife and cut that top out because this is a very hard pumpkin. It was hollow, but it is very hard. And then I base coated this in the color black and then added some of my crackle medium on this, and then did a heavy coat of the color buttercream. and did a crackle finish on this one as well. And you do need to let that crackle finish dry before you add your paint. And I always like to keep my strokes going in the same direction. That gives your crackle a better look. Now, when this dried, then I just took a napkin that I had that had some sunflowers and bees on it and just tore out little images and decoupaged them randomly on the pumpkin. And then I just gathered a stick from the yard and added it into the top of the pumpkin. And because I have all the space in the top, then I need to make sure that my pumpkin stem stays very secure. So what I did was I cut a pretty good flat base on the bottom and then added quite a bit of hot glue and glued that down inside. And then I held it in place till it was dry pretty well. And then I just started to fill the area with some greenery. And once I got enough in it, actually was able to even use some wired greenery, and I wrapped that around the stem also to help hold it secure. And then I just stuffed some Spanish moss in the top. I just glued it and stuffed it in there pretty tightly to fill in that space. And then I just tied a hang tag out of it that I made from some free clip art from the Graphics Fairy, and then this was finished. And then I found a bread box that I thrifted, and this was also in the raw wood color, but I gave it 2 coats of the color Caviar, which is the black that I've been using, and I did some light distressing and finished it off with the Van Dyke brown glaze, and added a sunflower transfer to it, and that's all that I did to this one. And I also made over a paper towel rack to go with this, and it was just in a stained wood, and I decided to leave this the color that it was because I was happy with that. So I added both stenciling to this and more of that same sunflower transfer from Dixie Belle. I'm sorry that I'm not showing more of this. I didn't get as much chance to film today, but I just wanted to kind of show you what I worked on in this vignette. And I'm also sorry about the noise in the background. We're having some pretty severe weather here, so I know that you're hearing some of that. So I added this stenciling and added some of those transfers and clear coated the whole thing after I painted the dowel in the color Caviar, which is the black that I've been working with. And that's all that I did to this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.